Beginning our Daf Mesechta Yevamos Daf Zayin, we begin on the top of the Amud. We begin the 13th parak, parak Beit Shammai, where we discuss the mitzvah miyun, of refusal of a minor's marriage. And oftentimes we found in this Mesechta that the halachas of chalitza and miyun and Rabbi Shloimy, we find that they have similar halachas, that they're both the type of refusal. And so after the mitzvah chalitza, we speak about now the halacha of miyun. Shiur corresponds because of the Cheskel, to end of the Daf Yomi of today's Daf, the grace of Malta, the Jaslik family, the grace of Chasna Hapanach, Shesiasafi, the Shnachas, Zivik Shbe'el Yofa. So things we're discussing today's Daf are the machlekes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hill regarding halachas of miyun. We have a bunch of different machlekes on that. 4 explanations of the machlekes of ein mema'an and nesuos, that there's no miyun for those who are married. Miyun is that a girl could biblically be married off by her father, but when her father's not around, then her siblings and her mother could marry off rabbinically. Part of that is that she could just refuse and she could walk out from that marriage. Erisin is the first stage of marriage. Nesuin can be done either with bia, cohabitation, chuppah, taking her into his domain, or masra av l'shluchi abal, the father gives over to the agents of the husband. When you went out to make a coffee, we made a shout out for you, so just letting you know that. So begin the Daf Zayin, we begin the new parak. Beis Shammai says that if you have an orphan, that her mother, brothers married her off, which is again this rabbinic marriage, so although there is a halacha of miyun, that she could refuse this marriage, because she was married off as a young girl, she cannot refuse ela arusis. We have many different machlekes in Beis Shammai's hill. First one is, Beis Shammai says, it can only be if she was only engaged. If she was married, then there's no more miyun. So they disagree. They say no, arusis minasuas. They can be married, or she could do miyun whether she was just engaged or even if she was married. That's machlekes number 1. Machlekes number 2. The school of Shammai, they say, bebal, that this could only be done to her husband. But if, let's say, her husband died and she didn't do miyun to him, and then she falls for yibum, that, and some take out the words, but the words are b'lei yavam. She cannot do miyun to the yavam. She cannot remove herself with miyun. Rather, she has to wait until she becomes an adult, because a ketana cannot do chalitza. She waits till she becomes an adult, and then she can do chalitza. That's what Beis Shammai holds. Beis Hillel, they say, no, but bal b'yam, you can do miyun in the husband and the yavam. That's machlekes number 2. Machlekes number 3. Beis Shammai, they say, it has to be done before him, it has to be done in front of him. So they say, no, before him, she could just do miyun whether he's there or he's not there. Machlekes number 4. Beis Shammai, they say, bebezna has to be in court. They say, no, bebezna can be in court or not in court. And Amalahem Beis Hillel Beis Shammai, the school of Hill said to Shammai, she could do miyun when she's a minor. I feel dal even 4 or 5 times. So on that, on the Beis Shammai, this is machlekes number 5. Meaning, if let's say she gets remarried, she can continue doing it. So Beis Shammai say to them, no, ein b'nai Yisrael hafker. Jewish girls are not free for all, and therefore, even if she was just engaged, which Beis Shammai limits it to engagement, she cannot do miyun and then get engaged to another man and then do miyun again. Ella rather, she does miyun to this man if she wants to. And then she waits from getting engaged to another man until she becomes an adult. Then her kedushin is going to be full-fledged, because then she's already a consenting adult. And she's not going to go out a second time with miyun, then it'll be with a get. And then, v'timoin, she'll do miyun to the first husband, v'tinase, and then she'll get married. Which your mother's going to ask, what are you saying? You already said she did miyun when she was a girl. Then she becomes an adult. What's the second time v'timoin v'tinase? What do you mean? She's an adult, so she'll get married. Your mother's going to address what is doing this miyun another time. So we had 5 machlekes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel regarding the laws of miyun. 1 is it only by arusis, or even if the girl got married already, did nesuin? Is it only by the baal, or is it even by the yavam? Which if her husband died without any children, this minor girl could she do miyun? Should you refusal to the yavam? Does it have to be in front of him, or could even be not in front of him? Does it have to be in court, or could even be not by court? And also, could she do it only once in her lifetime, or could she even do it many times in her lifetime? Those are 5 different machlekes in Beis Shammai, this halacha of miyun. Now, explaining the opening halacha of this machlekes regarding Bisham Basil of can you do mian only by Arusas or only Basil says even if they already got married, this young girl and this man. Gemara brings 4 explanations to explain this machlekes. Amar Rabbi Huda Mishmor says, my Talmud Bishamai, what's the reason of the opening machlekes of Bishamai that they say that if she already got married, we know there's 2 stages by a chasna, by the Joslik round, we'll see tonight, there's going to be both at the same time, but in Talmudic times they used to do 12 months gap, there's Kedushin, there's the ring, and then the Kriz Ksuba, they make a big separation, but they make the brachas, then you have the chuppah, you have the yichud, you have different things to fulfill that of Nisuin. So what's the reason Beishama that they hold by Nisuin, you cannot do min anymore? Why? She's a minor girl. Why if you did Nisuin, wouldn't you be able, it's rabbinic, and why only for Kedushin, but not by Nisuin? So it says Gemara, Lafisha aim tonight, because a stipulation is not effective bin Nisuin by the marriage of an adult woman. Meaning, even if let's say when they got engaged, the chassan made a condition, and he says it's got to be like this. If it turns out this and not like this, then I don't want this to be a halachic engagement. Even if there was such a stipulation, when they have bia and chuppah, which are the ways of doing the suin, he's meichel, he's forgiving on that condition, and the original kedushin is going to take effect. And so therefore, v'inasua, if the marriage of the minor girl will be tama'in, she'll do refusal, people are not going to know that the reason why she's allowed to walk out of a marriage, not engagement, a marriage, is because she's a minor. People are going to say, I know she didn't get a get. The stomach, there was a tanai. The husband made a tanai. As long as you don't have this and this condition, I can't take a woman as a shrill voice. For me, that's a non-negotiable. And okay, turns out there was some type of condition, and therefore that's why she left. So asla maybe yeshtanai ben nisuin. People are going to start saying, oh, stomach is such a halacha that there are the halacha of conditions by marriage, by an adult woman, and then people are going to start making that mistake, and women are just going to leave the marriages, say, and we don't need a get because there's t'nai by nisuin, which is not the case. There's no t'nai by nisuin, and because of during bia chuppah, the person is meichel on that, even if there was a t'nai, because of the bia, the chiba of the bia and the chuppah, he's meichel on it. So to prevent the confusion of an adult woman who's gonna be married, we don't allow even the mian, because technically mian should work by nisuin too, but it's going to be confusing. People are not going to realize it's because she's a minor. They're going to think because of the halach of tanai, that's why she's leaving, and that's not the case. So then we didn't let even by mind. So Gemara says, wait a second, you still didn't answer. Yeah, in the old conditions. Right, all conditions are null and void. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because of the chiba of the bia and the chuppah. So the Gemara says, okay, but nichnas l'chuppah v'le'nivel l'maykel. What are you going to say? According to Beishamai, if let's say they had chuppah, they got married, but there was no bia. So why are you not going to allow miyun? Because you're going to say, what were the words of Beishamai? Beishamai said, "Ein mine and ela arusas." You could only do miyan for that if they were engaged. Sounds like that's excluding even if let's say they only had chuppah, or let's say even if it was nimser l'shluchei habal, where they're not an arus anymore, they're considered married, but there's no chiba of the bia. I mean, you tell me that his Michael, that once he already has that endearment of the bia, he's already considered as married. But why chuppah? Why would he be Michael by chuppah? So the Gemara says, yeah, lafisha ain't t'nai b'chuppah. No, there's no t'nai even by chuppah. And it's the same thing. It's the same chiba that you get by the bia. It's the same thing that you get by the chuppah. And if you're going to say that a minor girl that goes to chuppah and didn't have bia could do miyan, people are going to say, Mustamad was a t'nai. And they're going to say that yesh t'nai b'chuppah. No, it's not true, but the same chiba you get by the bia is the same thing you get by chuppah. So the Gemara says, okay, but there's another way to get married. When the father gives, which explains in a second, obviously the father's not alive over here, but when the father gives over his daughter to the agent of the husband, Mike, what are you going to say over there? And that is, you're going to come to say, even if you're going to come to, even if you're going to see, you're going to come to say that a Tanai is effective by when the father gives over the daughter to the Shluchei Habal, that would be true. Because there's no chiba over here, and that's Rashi says the key word over here, that's the whole svara of this first approach in the Gemara. There's no endearment to say that, he was meichel the Tanai, because when you're by the chuppah and everyone's dressed in a beautiful gown and the chassan is there and everyone's there, it's like, okay, I know I had to know you, but it's like Shayna chuppah, it's like very close. You get it's very emotional, and by Bia Versteitzer, but by when he's sending her to the Shluchei Habal, which that does affect a stage of Nisuin, there's no chib over there. Rashi explains, obviously when we're saying Masra Av, it's not precise, because if the father would have accepted the Kedushin, then obviously this girl would not be going out with Miyun, because the father merits in his Kedushin of his daughter biblically. Miyun is only by an orphan where her mother or siblings marry her off. Rather, what the Gemara means to say is that just like the halacha is when the father gives over his daughter to the Shluchei Habal, the Gemara Kesubas Daf Yomi base tells us that that's considered marriage. So the parallel over here, when the brothers give her over to the agents, that's also Nisun. That's the Gemara's question, according to Bishamai. Why are you saying that there's no Miyun over there? What are you saying? Your whole halacha is based on the confusion. We don't want people to think, a married person could just walk out. People might think it's because of Tanai. It's not, it's really because of Miyun, but people are not going to realize that difference. So I understand that there's no Tanai by Nisuin by the case of Bia, by the case of Chuppah, but Mosra Av L'Shluchei Habal, when there was none of that, and it's just Nisuin because you already gave over to the agent's husband, there's no Chib over there, so what's the problem? Even if you're confusion and you think that people can say, you could walk out when there's a Tanai and Nisuin, that should be true, because there is no Chib over there. A person not Moshel on his Tanai, he's still going to stand on principle. So even if you'll make the mistake, that's not a mistake. Because yes, you could still have a halach of tonight. Rosh Gemara says, Loi plug rabban. But still the rabbis did not differentiate between what type of marriage it is. In other words, we didn't allow you, once you got nisuin, we don't let you walk out because of tonight. Not to differentiate. And therefore that would be confusing. We don't want the girl to do miyun when she's a nisua, because we're going to start letting certain cases yes, certain cases not. It's going to start confusing. So blanket, we say that you cannot do this. So that's the understanding of Beishamai. Why he held you cannot do miyun by nisua, because of the confusion of, you might say use yesh tonight by nisua. Still, they say no. Maybe a deed in nisua katan de rabbanan. Everyone knows that the marriage of a minor is rabbinic, and everyone's going to know that's why she could walk out, because she did miyun. No one's going to think it's because of yesh tonight by nisua. And the Beisil is not concerned. Therefore, they hold you can do miyun even by nisua. That's interpretation number one. Interpretation number two. Rabbi Yosef and Tavai, they both say, Tavai the Bishamai. The reason Bishamai in our Mishnah that hold that you cannot do miyun by nesua is lefishe in odem oised bilas znos. A person does not want to make that his act of intimacy was an act of immorality, which is that the Rabbana instituted for a minor girl marriage. Why? So that they shouldn't be treating her like an ownerless piece of property. As the Gemara says later on, the Kufid Beis and Beis, regarding a cherish that marries because she has no father. Now, if you're going to say that she could do a refusal, so then the husbands will not want to marry this minor girl, this orphan, because no one wants to make that. Comes out now, all the bias was nus. We never married. She just walks out and she just undoes the whole thing. And therefore, that's going to uproot the whole rabbinic institution. The rabbis want that this 10-year-old girl should have a husband. She has no father protecting her. We want it. And if you're going to have miyun when she's married, if she's engaged, okay, they never were intimate yet. After you said, you mean we were together for like a whole month, and then that means to say everything I did was a maisis nus? So since the person does not want his meat to be his nus, we can't let the girl do miyun when she's married, because that will prevent the whole rabbinic idea of having this girl married in the first place. Says the Gemara, okay, but what are you going to say with nechnas l'chuppah v'lei nivla? What are you going to say? Let's say they had chuppah, they never had bi yet, and the girl she's overwhelmed. She's like, I can't do this. She walks out. This 10-year-old girl, like by the chasana, by the mitzvah time, she walks out. Never had bi. They're married. It's like, what are you going to say with it? There's no bi is nus. Why can't she do miyun then? So Gemara, no, for another reason. Very similar. He doesn't want to have that his chuppah was a prohibited of it was a chuppah of a biaznus. I mean, the whole purpose of chuppah is really taking the woman into your property, which is what the chuppah is on some level. It's your own private area, what the yichud, and it's different what things we try to do to accomplish in the suur and the chuppah. But he doesn't want that either. So he's not going to do that. If he knows the girl could walk out after he had a chuppah, and turns out you mean to say I was secluded with this woman for illicit purposes, he's not going to want that either. So again, they're not. If they know she can walk out, they're not going to get married, and therefore again that will defeat the whole purpose. But then the Gemara says, wait, there's a third way, as we said in the first pshat. What are you going to say if they just had given the woman over to the agents of the husband, where the Gemara elsewhere tells us is considered marriage, and therefore the equivalent would be by rabbinic marriage, where when the brothers give her over to the agents of the husband, it's going to be considered as marriage. According to Beis Shammai, you could not do min because Beis Shammai said a unmitigated statement. They said you could only do min when she's an arusa, which means to say any type of nisuin you cannot do. What are you going to say? There's no bias nus over here, and there's no chuppah even a bias nus. So a man would not hold back from getting married if she could walk out. Let's say when they're on the road, on the parkway, and they're going to the husband's house. Fine, let her walk out. Why? Because she's married already? Because Masar l'shluch habal. What's the problem over there? So again, it says similarly plug rabbanon. The rabbis didn't differentiate because that's it. We're going to start saying this case nisur, this case nisur. It's going to get too confusing. So therefore, they didn't differentiate, and therefore that's why according to Beis Shammai, you cannot do min by a nisur. But if it's still, they disagree according to this second shot because kivadik kedushin b'ksuba. What do you mean? There was a whole kedushin. She got a ring. There's all kriyas ksuba. There's a whole document over here. No one's going to come to say that his B was a meises nus, like as if he found some 10-year-old girl and they were just intimate. No one's going to say that, and therefore it's not going to hold back the guy, even if she could do mian when she married already for 2 years and she's 11 years old. No, fine. The guy's not going to be makbid about that because it doesn't look like znus. We have a ksuba, we have the wedding picture, all different things. And therefore, Basil is not concerned with that. That's the second approach. Third approach. Papa May says, the reason Beis Shammai that in the Nesur cannot do min is Mishum Pedi, is we don't want the husband to ruin the woman's the produce of her nichsi melug, of the certain assets that she brings into the marriage, which is only a concern if they were getting married, but if they're engaged, the chassan doesn't get any payers. He only gets the right to utilize her properties and to eat the payers after they're married. Now the thing is, what's interesting is the Tamid Basil Mishon Peri. The reasoning Basil is also why they hold that in the Sukkah could do mian is also because of Peri. What does this mean? So the Gemara explains. Tamid Bisham Mishon Peri. What does it mean? The reason Bisham is because of Peri. The Amrit Nesuah Timoin. If you say that a married woman could do refusal, so then Shamat v'Achalumanai. So then, what he's going to do? He's just going to grab away and consume all her payers, because the Seif of the Maker kind of. He's like, wait a second. This girl came into the marriage. The Nadin, they came in with all this stuff. And I don't know. Maybe she's not going to be happy. She could just walk out whenever she wants to. So let me chap her and let me eat up. Let me consume all her stuff, because she might walk away. But if we say that the Sukkah cannot do mian, okay, he'll take his time. She can't walk out. She has to get a get from me anyway. So I'm not going to eat up everything. I'll pace myself. I'm saying I want things to get better. But if it's still this, to the contrary, since you say that she could refuse, he's actually going to make her properties better. Sava, he thinks, the Eloi, because if I don't make it better, her relatives are going to give her counsel, and they're going to take her away from him. They can say, look what your husband's doing, he doesn't care about you, he's not taking care of the things. And she'll go, you're right, it's true, and she could just walk off. So that she could walk off as a deterrent is actually shaping his behavior to make sure that he does behave. So they're both coming from the Svara of Peri, why she should or not be allowed to do mean when she's married, but Shaman holds, we can't let her do mean, because if that's the case, he's going to feel pressured, he's going to want to just eat it all up. Basil holds no, they see maybe the higher idealism in the man. He's actually going to keep him in shape, that he's going to want to make things better. The fourth interpretation, Rava Amar, he says, the reason that in the suur cannot do mian is because a person's not going to put in the effort into the chasna, the whole suda, umafsida, and to ruin it. Therefore, if you're going to say that the girl could do mian, to make up a groise chasna, big hall, 20-piece band, and then this 10-year-old girl, a month in, she could just say, okay, I'm done. And she could walk away. So, Bisham is going to say, no one's going to want to do that. No one's going to want to marry her. Because you made this big chasna, and she just walks off. But if you say it, the suur cannot do mian, fine, then he'll get married, he'll do this whole chasna. Basil, what's with Basil? Why are they not concerned with that? Why wouldn't people not get married because of the concern that the girl could just walk off? Because Tavai Nichelu, it's not true. Both of them, the husband and the wife, they prefer this. That even with this risk factor of that she might walk off. The Leipikalayu called the Ishas. That word should go out regarding them that they are married. And that is because both of them want to have that everyone wants to be in that category of the married people. No one wants to be from, as the Gemara says, Tav Misav Tandu, for sure women want to have that they want to be considered as married, have the ring on their finger like they call it. And therefore that's not going to hold them back. Even the husband, he wants to just know that he's married, and even he'll take that risk about that maybe she'll walk off a month after marriage. So therefore that's the fourth interpretation of Machlekes Bisham Etzil regarding could a married woman do mian or not. Going back to the next machlekes in the Mishnah. Beishami Aimrim, we said in the Mishnah that Bebal B'chulu. Beishami said that a girl could only do mian to her husband. But let's say Nebuch, the husband dies without any children, then she cannot do mian to the Yavam, to the brother-in-law. But Basil said no, she could do mian to the husband and to the brother-in-law. So we have machlekes how to qualify this opinion of Basil. Amar Abaisha says, according to Basil, that said that you can do mian by the Yavam, it means me'enes lemamara. Means, let's say the Yavam did what we call as a mimer. Or mimer is rabbinic kedushin that the Yavam does to the Yavam. Now, so she could do mian and uproot that mimer that she wouldn't need a get for his mimer. Because as a minor, she's not biblically getting married when he doesn't mimer her. So it's just like what her original husband did. And she could uproot that with a mian. But she could not do mian to the zika bond, and she will require chalitza for the zika, because that she's not uprooting when she does mian. That's what Rabbi Shloimy says. Says, my time Rabbi, what's the reason of Rabbi Shloimy? He explains, mimer de midaitam, a mimer which is done with her consent. She's accepting this kedushin from the Yavam, it's a Matziyakra. So that she did on her own consent, so she could uproot it. But the Zika, the connection that the Yavam has with the Yavam, the Balkarcha, which is against her will, it's automatic from the first kedushin, and it's coming from her marriage that she didn't do mian on the first one. So the Matziyakra, that's not her choice. That's coming automatically that she cannot uproot. And therefore that's the difference between the mimer and the Zika, if she could do mian on that or not. That the Gemara asks, but by the bia of the Yavam, the Balkarcha, as the Gemara said on Perak Haba, Yevamos Daf and it says in the pasuk, Yevama Yavi Allah, her Yavam will come on her, means Balkarcha even against her will, and yet as we continue to base Umatzi Akra, but she could uproot that she should not require a get for the bia of the Yavam, because that's what Basil says. When Basil says she can do mian to the Yavam, it's the same thing as the husband. Just like we said you can do mian to the husband, I don't care if you were intimate, I don't care if you were married for 10 years, not 10, whatever amount of time, it could be, not 10, 3, whatever. But the point is that no matter how long you're married, she could uproot it. So that means to say, even if the Yavam did bia, she could uproot that, because same thing as the first husband. So what are you saying? That Zika, because Balkarcha. So there she cannot uproot it. Bia is also the bia, he could force her with bia, and she could uproot that. So the Gemara says, you're right. Ella, rather, a different interpretation. According to Beis Hillel, bia u'maimer the reason why they're different, that you're right, she could uproot the Bia and the Maimer is because the Huka of it. Since the Yavam is doing them, so Matzia Akra, so she could uproot it. But Zika, the bond that Achmona Ramallah, that the Torah is putting on her, the Matzia Akra, so it's not about the Svar Bal Karcha, it's more about the Svar about who's doing it. If it's something that he's doing, so she could uproot that, because that's what he's doing with her. But what the Torah does, the Torah makes the Zika, that's not within her domain to uproot. That's one interpretation. However, Ulamay disagrees on Rabbi Shloimy. And he says, no, Mamenes of the Zika, so she could even do refusal to the Zika. What's the reason? So he explains, because Nisui Kamoi Ka'akro, when a woman does miyun, essentially, she's uprooting her initial marriage that she had with the first husband. So that means to say, there is no Zika over here. You're right, she can't uproot Zika because that's coming from Hashem. But she doesn't have to uproot them because she took down the whole floor. The whole thing comes crashing down because it's all based on the marriage of the first one, and that's what she uproots with her miyun. Now, Eisvei Rava La'ula. Rava asked on this second interpretation we just said of Ula, from the opening Mishnah of our Masechta. On the Beis and Beis, we brought the Mishnah that if, let's say, a man's minor daughter is married to his brother. Now, as Rashi explains, although this guy is alive, the father didn't accept the Kedushin. How so? It's what's called the Yisayma B'chaya Av. A Levedigi Yisayma. What does that mean to say? If, let's say, her father had originally married her off to someone else when she was 5, then that man divorced her. She is now qualified as an orphan in her father's lifetime, meaning to say the father has no dominion over her. And she could now do miyun if she got subsequently married to another person. Now, she was married to his brother. His brother, now he has no say in the matter, her father, but the mother and the siblings said, let's marry her off to Fetz Shmuel. And she didn't do miyun to him, and then he dies. The brother dies without any children. So the Mishnah said, opening the Masechta a while ago, that the tzara has to have chalitza. Why? Because the tzara of the daughter will not be exempted because of tzara sarah. Similarly, she should be poitress, because one of the arayis, the 15 arayis, is a daughter. Here, no. She will not be able to walk scot-free. She'll require the tzara, the co-wife will require chalitza. Why? So that's what the Mishnah said, that which our Gemara quotes, Kol sheichoy l'moyin. Since the daughter could have done miyun, she could do miyun, she could do a refusal, so it's not really a full-fledged marriage. So you still require chalitza because she's not really married to the brother, but at the same time, you cannot do yibum to the co-wife because at the end of the day, v'lo miyana, the daughter did not do miyun. So, like Rashi says, she's a partial tzara zera. It's like a quasi tzara zera. On the one hand, she's not a tzara zera because I'm not really married. I could just walk out whenever I want to. At the same time, if you are married, you didn't do miyun. So since it's like this middle state, so the halacha was tzarasa chaletzav lemzebemes. The co-wife, you have to do chalitza with her, but not do yibum. Says Rava to Ula Bamai. According to you, Ula, why is this the case? Temoin hashto. What do you mean? Do miyun right now. V'takrinu l'nisur kamoi. And you'll uproot the original marriage, but there's Yom Tzarasa. Do Yom to the go-away. He's explaining in the Shita of Beis Hillel that the miyun that we say that the woman could do to the Yavam is even not just for Mamara, but even for Zikasai. Great. So do miyun to the Zika. You're not married then. You never were married. And now, the brother could do Yibum to the Tzara. Why are you saying Chaletz Chom Zebemes? Says the Gemara, good question. But Tzaras Erev Shani, the tzara of a co-wife is going to be different, meaning that even though you're right, like Ula said, that miyun is effective for a minor, and as in general, as Yevama, that she could walk out without chalitza, it's not going to be effective regarding an erva if she does miyun to her father, who is her yavam, to make that her tzara is going to be permitted for yibum. Why? So it's based on the precedent. The Tanya Rabbi Cheskel taught regarding a minor girl that was miyah nobabal. Forget about yibum for a second. In general, if she did miyah to her husband, muteres, she's permitted to get married to la'aviv, to his father. Why? because she uprooted the marriage. It's like as if that man that she was quote unquote married to was raping her and seducing her, whatever it was. She was never married to her. She's oiker the nisun l'mafreis. So the father, you can marry the relative of the man who seduced you, so she can marry the father. But if let's say her husband died, she never did miyun to him, and then she does the miyun biyavam in the yavam. So even though she's walking out without chalitza, because again it's like she was never married, obviously you're uprooting the original marriage. Even so, says the Brisa, asur lov. She's forbidden to the father. Why? Why is she forbidden to the father? She was never married to anyone. The Rashi explains the words are because of marasai, because of the appearance, because from the fact that there was a ceremony of a yavam. Obviously, the original marriage was effective enough to make that there's someone here, a brother-in-law, that you're doing your miyun to, that looks like she's the daughter-in-law of her father-in-law. So because of the appearance, she cannot get married anymore to the father. Oh, so says Rava, what do you see? Alma, you see that B'shas, this is probably Ula, like answering the question. So Alma, you see B'shas Nefila, Nichas Kekalasai. That the moment of that there's a situation of Yibam, she really looks like the daughter-in-law. So I answer your question, Rava. Here also, even though you're right, like Ula said, that what you could do miyun to the yavam, you're uprooting the original marriage, you're even doing it to the zika. Yeah, but b'shas nefila niras, but at the time of the nefila, the falling of the yibam, the tzara appears to be kitzaras bitai. She looks like the tzara of the daughter, and that it was effective, the marriage of the brother in his daughter, at least to make it that it falls for him, so that she does the miyun to him. So therefore, that's what's forbidden, to do yibam to the tzara. Technically, it should really be permitted, based on the way Ula is explaining Basil, and that really would be the case. But because of the Machas Ayin Shabai, that's why you're not allowed to. So it's not a contradiction for Ula, because technically you could, you just can't, because of that technicality of the Marasai. Now, based on this teaching of Ula, Amar, we have many different opinions. Now that we know that you could do miyun into the yavam, like Basil said, and Ula explained you could even do the miyun that it's uprooting the zika. So we have many different opinions exactly what the ramifications are. As Rav said, Rav says like this. He said, Miyana, if let's say the Yevama did miyun bezeh in one of the brothers, let's say there's 5 brothers and her husband died without any children, and this minor girl is doing miyun in one of the brothers, so then asura lazeh, she's forbidden to the other ones, meaning to the rest. Mitababal saget. Just like a Yavama that one of the brothers gave her a get. Meaning, Balas a get, if let's say one of the brothers would give a get to the Yavama. Lav kivin itzlon, isn't it that one should become forbidden to one of the brothers if he gives her a get? Itzagalalakulu should become forbidden to everyone. It's already forbidden because kivin shalaybana shuvla yivna. There's no difference. Once she does miyun to one of the brothers, then the halacha is that she's going to be forbidden to all the rest of the brothers too. Just like when the Yevama gets a get. That's one opinion. Shmuel Amahi disagrees, says no. Miyun the bezeh, if she does miyun in one brother, with techas lazeh, she's permitted to still do yibum with the other brothers. You can't compare it to a woman that the Yavam is giving her a get. Because Balas a get, when she gets a get, who do kavod ba? The Yavam, he's doing something to her, so rabbinically we say, Kivin Shulei Bana, once the brother's not building, Shulei Yivna. But over here, Bamiyun, he kav the bay. The girl is doing it to him. The Amr, she's telling him, I don't want you, I don't desire you. But Bachu Delirina, it's only you that I don't want. But your friend I do want. And therefore, she could do miyun to one. For you, I don't want it to be. But for the other brothers, she could still do yibum. That's the opinion of Shmuel. A third interpretation of Asyam, he says, Mi'in bezeh, she does miyun to one of the Yavamim. Mutechas alalai, she permitted even to him, even to the one she did miyun to. So the Gemara says, Leime kirebaishis really. Wait a second, but didn't Basil say that you could do miyun to a Yavam? Oh, wait a second, but let's say he holds like Rabbi Ishia. Rabbi Ishia interpreted Basil's halacha that you do miyun to the Yavam, that he said, Einam me'enes lezikasai. Rav Ashi interpreted Basil's halacha that you can do miyun to the Yavam only on the Maimer. But not the Zika. The Zika, the Mishemaya that came from heaven, you can't uproot that. And therefore, even to the Yavam that she did Mian to, she can still do Yibum with him. Says the Gemara, no, not necessarily. Bechad Yavam, you're right, if there was only one Yavam, you're right, actually, not like Rabbi Shloimy. Maybe like Ula, that the Yevama could uproot that Zika, and therefore she would not be permitted to that Yavam himself. Hach over here, when is Ravasi saying this, that she's permitted even to him, is B'shnei Yevama Naskim. We're talking about that there's two surviving brothers. The ain't mean L'chatzi Zika, you cannot do mean to half a Zika, and that's why. Because she's only doing mean to him. Well, what does that mean? You're saying, but you want the other one, but then you can't do halfway. So because it's not halfway, therefore that means to say you didn't do anything. And if it adds to the actual why you permitted to that brother himself. But if it's only one brother, of course, you could be Oikad Zika, and therefore it could be like Ula, like Rabbi. Like Yasser Ravin, and Ravin came, Omer B'yichan, and said, Name Rabbi Yechanan, Mi'ano Bezeh, if she does Mi'an to this brother, Muteres La'achan, she's permitted to the other brothers. But, said Ravin, but they didn't agree to this teaching of Rabbi Yechanan. Says who is it that didn't agree to this teaching of Rabbi Yechanan? So we have three interpretations. Who is it that didn't hold of this interpretation? Right? Who's the one that just said Muteres La'achan? We said was seemingly Ravasi. Ravasi was the last interpretation. We had Rav, we had Shmuel, we had Ravasi regarding if she does Mian than one of the brothers, what's halacha with the other brothers? We had Rav who says that you're forbidden to other brothers. We had Shmuel who said that she's permitted to the other brothers. And Ravasi said she's even permitted to the Yavam himself. And Rabbi Yechanan was saying, you do Mian to one, you're permitted with the other ones. That sounded like the halacha of Shmuel. So who is it that didn't agree to him? So three interpretations. Amabai says Rav. Rav is the one that didn't agree to this halacha, because as we quoted Rav before, he said, Mi and the Bezeh Asur Lazeh. So you do Mian to one brother, so it's like Balas Haget. You've forbidden to all the other brothers. That's one interpretation. Rav Amma, he says, no, Reb Oishia. Reb Oishia was the one who didn't agree to the halacha of Rabbi Yechanan. So it's a little, Rashi adds something to explain this. From the fact that Rabbi Yechanan said that if she does Mian to this one, she's Muteres La'achan, according to this interpretation, the Gemara understands that to mean that even though that also includes the Yavam himself, the Achen, the brothers, the Gemara's understanding according to this interpretation means all the brothers, even that Yavam himself. Now, however, it does sound like from the plurality that if there's Achen, if there's brothers, plural, then yes, then she's permitted to them all. Because that would be considered Miyun, if you're doing only to this brother, of half of a Zika, which is like Ravasi, that doesn't work. But if there's only one Yavam that you're doing mean by a full Zika, then actually she would be forbidden to the Yavam. Now, the thing is, according to Rabbi Ishia, even by one Yavam, you're also permitted. Because he held the Basil holds you could do only to the Maimer, not to the Zika. So according to this interpretation, this halacha of Rabbi Yechanan that they were not masking to, who's they? That's Rabbi Ishia. Rabbi Ishia holds, it's not true, you cannot do Miyun to the Zika. But Amrullah, some say a third interpretation that it's Ravasi. Ravasi didn't agree to Rabbi Yechanan. Meaning, he also didn't agree to Rabbi Yechanan. For sure, Rabbi Ishia. Because according to this, the Amri law, Rabbi Yechanan was specifically for the brothers, but not for the Yavam. Ravasi doesn't agree to that because Ravasi holds that even for himself, you're permitted. Rabbi Yechanan is only saying for the brothers, again, according to this interpretation, the brothers is the other brothers, not that Yavam. So therefore, that would not be like Ravasi. So that's three interpretations. Who is it that was like Haidulai to Rabbi Yechanan? Again, that would depend how you even interpret Rabbi Yechanan's teaching was to say that who the others are that don't agree to that teaching of Rabbi Yechanan. We did halacha in the Mishnah with the other machlekes in Beis Shammai Oimrim b'fanav v'chulu. Beis Shammai said that the mian has to be in front of him. So it says no, it can even be not in front of him. So Tanya learned the Brisa elaborating on this. Amar lehen Beisil Beis Shammai. The school of Hillel said the school of Shammai. V'alei Pishan Hagamal. You have Pishan, the camel driver. Mian ishtu shlei b'fanav. His wife did mian even though he wasn't there. So you see, could be shlei b'fanav. So Amar Beis Shammai Beisil. Beis Shammai said Beisil Pishan Hagamal. Oh, you bring me a raya from him? They made the kafusha mother. With a turned over measuring tool did he measure, which Rashi says the terminology of a knot. When you when you overcharge people, when you like measuring from the bottom of the measuring tool, where he was actually causing a loss to his wife's nichsim maluk. So the fikach madud loy b'midik, which is they measured for him also with an overturned measurement. Meaning, don't bring me a raya. You're right. Usually, says Bishama, you have to mean only in front of him. There we let it shlebabanda because we treated him in the inappropriate way. We let them in the not allowed way, just like he was doing inappropriate things to his wife's property. So the Gemara asks and says, wait a second. You tell me that the reason why they allowed him in, even shlebabanda, even though usually he's not allowed to because he was consuming her payers, well then Pshita obviously Nesuah. The only one who has rights to eat the payers is married, not engaged. But Ram Bisham Bisham Mamandas. So how Bisham is saying the reason why they did this was because he was eating the payers. So if they were allowed to shlem bavanav, even though it normally has to be bavanav, but I thought he doesn't let it be done when you're married. So the Gemara, trey kitri, 2 knots abdibai did they do to him that they did for his bad. Not only did they allow it shlem bavanav, they allowed it even though they're already married. But you're right, both those Bisham usually holds you cannot do min. Then the Mishnah continued with the next machlekes. And Bisham and they said with Nei Bezdin, who has to be in front of the courts, etc. And they still said no, even not in front of the courts. So relating to this halacha regarding how many people have to be present when you do the miyun, it's not possible. It's been Mishnah Sanhedrin. Hachalitza, which is the previous parak, Vamiyunin, and the refusal, which is from this rabbinic marriage in this parak. Bishleish has to be with 3 people. Says the Mamatan, who's the time of this Mishnah? So Rabbi said Bishami of our Mishnah said it has to be a bezdin. Shabbat says nafil teim besil. You could even say it's besil because ad can become besil. Up until where we find besil, they're saying their opinion that ad lebin and mumchim. When they said you don't need a bezdin, you just don't need the rabbis who know all the laws. Of a shleish bim, you need to have 3, and therefore this halacha of miyun b'shleisha could even be according to besil. Ketan like Glenda Brisa. B'shamim they say b'fnei bezdin has to be in front of the court. Besil they say b'fnei bezdin b'shlo b'fnei bezdin, whether in front of the court or not in front of the court. But the Elvei it says the rise of both of them agree. Shetzar Shleish, you need 3. So the Mishnah Sanhedrin could even be like Basil. Now, they validate the miyan if it's done with 2, which Taisa points out the same would be even if there's 1. The reason why they say 2 is just because you just need testimony that there was such a miyan. And Rabbi Nachman says Allah is like that pair that miyan is valid with 2, which Taisa brings Rabbi Nachman that specifically b'di'ev like it's still a no because the word machshir sounds like b'di'ev. So only b'di'ev would that be valid. Now we continue with the next machlekes in the Mishnah, which Beishamayim they said Timay and Bechulu that you can only do 1 miyun. So what you have to do is you do miyun and until she becomes an adult, then she waits till then she does miyun, and then she gets married to someone else. But not get married again. But now that the Gemara asks, but she already did miyun once before in her husband. Why are you saying b'timoin b'tinaseh that she should do miyun again when she's an adult and get married? So Mashmoli says you have to read the words like this. You wait till she becomes an adult, and then she says, I want the original miyun that I did when I was 7. Because Rashi explains, because maybe she's going to change her mind. So when she's an adult and she has the intelligence, that's what it means v'timayin, v'tinasei, and she becomes older, then you ask her, and she reaffirms that original meaning that she did. That's one shot. Ulama, he says, no, it's not to go back and to do mean another time. Rather, tarti, there's 2 things that Ketani were learning in the Mishnah. What are the 2 things? Oh, shetimayin. Either that she does mean, and she waits from getting engaged to someone else until v'tagdil, until she becomes an adult, so that she doesn't go ahead and do mean with a second person. And B'tiaris can she'll get engaged to someone else. And that's engagement, because she's already an adult. Oh, or if she wants to get married, Shetimayin, she does miyun in the husband. Oh, and then B'tinasi la'alta, then she gets married right away. Because again, we're going in Beishamai. Beishamai holds once you get married, you can't do miyun anymore, since you're already married. So there are 2 different options. Of course you don't have to do miyun the second time. It's one or the other. There's 2 different options. Either that she does miyun, she waits till she becomes adult, and then she can get engaged. But you can't get engaged now again when you're a minor, because then you might do miyun the second time, but you can. Or no, do miyun and get married right away. That's not ashetagdil, because once you get married, you can't do miyun anyway. But the Gemara says, "Bishlam ula." We understand ula hainik tonei ashetagdil. That's what we understand. There's two different cases. Until you become an adult and you do mian, and v'tinase, and you get married, which is now. According to him, it shouldn't say Tagdal v'timoin. It should say Tagdal v'toima. That she should just say and reaffirm her original mian. That's definitely a difficulty according to that interpretation. Now, look at the next Mishnah, continuing the theme discussing that of mian. Says the Mishnah, what is a minor that even needs mian? Meaning, as we'll see, although we're saying that for the rabbinic marriage she can do mian, she might not even need to do mian. So which child needs to do mian? It's shiur ima v'achel l'daita. If her mother and her siblings, her brothers, married her off with her consent. So although she's 6 or 7, but ultimately she's in agreement to that. Shiur shalei l'daita. If let's say they married her off without her awareness, without her consent, then actually she doesn't even have to do mian. She doesn't have to do the procedure of mian. She could just walk out. Mian is at least a procedure of saying, as we'll see in the Gemara, what she's saying, I refuse, but she doesn't even have to do that. That's the Tana Kama. Chanina ben Atignus, he says, any girl that cannot safeguard her kedusha, let's say she got a ring, she wouldn't be able to protect it. That girl is so immature that in the truth of the mind, that's what he holds, doesn't have to do mian. He says, if a girl does something, it's nothing, it's elikamafuta, it's rather like a girl that was seduced, and as Rashi says, it's like as if she wasn't married at all. So therefore, he explains like this: if you have a daughter from Yisrael that's married to a kohen as a minor, like truma, she cannot eat truma because it's like as if they're not married. And we'll see in the Gemara they'll qualify what he holds this rabbinic marriage of is to say that like he's like nothing. It's like she's being seduced. And Bas Kohen Yisrael, she's a daughter of a kohen to Yisrael. Truma, she continue eating truma. She's like not even married to him at all. Now, Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, he says, Kol ha'kava, if the woman's held back, that she's staying with her husband, shehi mina ish, that because of her husband, then ki'ilu hi ish, then it's as if she is his wife. And the Gemara explain what is that. But kol ha'kava she'in min ish, any time that she's being held back, that's not because of her husband, ki'ilu in ish, then it's like as if she's not his wife. Again, and that's to be able to qualify, is she like his wife or not, regarding getting a get or miyun, as we'll see in the Gemara. But the Gemara explains, Rabbi Yehudi says, some say the Masivtan and Bryce we learn. But it's showing in the beginning how you couldn't get mian. They used to write a document of a divorce of the mian, which it used to say like this: I don't desire him, I don't want him, I don't want to be married to him. But keeping the Chazar, the Navish, the Buddha, once they saw that there's too many words, they said there's a continued type of kafkas and elf. People are going to come to confuse it with a get. That an ignorant sefer is going to write a get to divorce a woman with the same type of like. This is the bridge version of like a get, which is not. So the Kinhachi, they instituted just one line. The Yom playing on that day, me and playing this by playing the Ba'ampana, this woman, the daughter of this man, did me in the front of us, and that was it, because if you start writing too many words, it's going to start being confusing for people. People are not going to realize that that's not really a get. Thank you to anything.